Oh my God, we got a hot tent.
Welcome back to Schill Brothers Outdoors. My name is Kevin. Andy is traveling right now, so you get a solo video, but we're going to talk all about hot tents today. First, make sure you click that subscribe button. Also, if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen a lot of our stuff, we have a podcast called Backcountry BSing. Check that out. We also stream those on YouTube. It finally happened. After years of talking about it, we finally got a hot tent. If you have been watching this channel for like the last couple years, I have not shut up about wanting to try hot tenting. We've really gotten into winter backpacking the last like 2 or 3 years, and honestly, winter backpacking is pretty cool. There are some huge advantages to winter backpacking. One of the biggest ones I like is that there's just far less people. And winter backpacking, obviously the main challenge is the weather, and a hot tent really helps with that. So after literally like years of going back and forth, we finally just bit the bullet and we got a hot tent. So let's talk about it. As I said, the reason we really wanted to get a hot tent was we were really up in the amount of winter backpacking we were doing, and it's cold in the winter, and if there was something we could bring with us that would only add maybe a pound or two a piece, but give us a heated sleeping shelter, like, we were gonna do it. So we started looking at hot tents. There are several brands of hot tents, like Seek Outside is probably one of the most popular ones. There's also like Nord Tent. There's also Luxe. Now Luxe is pretty popular among the YouTubers. Backcountry Exposure uses one. It's Good in the Woods uses one, and I honestly didn't realize the Luxe tents are not that expensive. So one of the reasons we got the Luxe Octopeak was price and packability, because it's made out of Schill nylon, and I'll show you the tent right now and throw the specs up on the screen. But the entire setup we got, so we have the Luxe Octopeak. Technically they call it a 6-person shelter. It's a TP style shelter. It also has a bunch of little ways to make it modular on the inside. I'll talk more about it. The stove we got is the 3W, or Wild West titanium stove. That's a pretty popular stove. Honestly, I didn't do a ton of research on the stoves. I did a lot more research on the hot tents itself. Stoves, there's a bunch of different titanium stoves. Obviously I want a titanium one, but I got what was recommended and what most people seem to be using. So that's the 3W stove, and so far it's pretty cool. So this entire setup costs about $700, so it's not cheap. But for a full titanium stove, it's not that bad, and it will sleep 2 with a stove, maybe 3. I'll show you what the inside looks like right now. So one of the main reasons we got this tent was because we're going to be hot tenting with more than one person. If it was just one person hot tenting, I probably wouldn't have gotten a hot tent this big, but I wanted to fit 2 or 3 people in there with gear and a stove if possible. I was a little worried about that with this, but after setting it up, I think we can definitely get 3 people in there with gear and wood and seal it up. I think that's feasible. So the main reason I got the Octopeak was for the size. They call it a 6-person tent. Without the stove, I don't know, maybe you could fit 6 people in there. It's big. It's pretty big. But with the stove, I think you can definitely get 2 in there, if not 3, with gear and wood. So that was the main reason why we were drawn to this style design, and the price, honestly, the price and availability was why we went to Luxe. We took it out there, we set it up, and you got to do the initial burn-in. So during the production of the titanium stoves, there's a lot of chemicals and stuff that are residually on the stove, so you have to do an initial burn-in on it. So we went out there, set up the tent. It was pretty straightforward to set up. It's a teepee style design, so put a couple stakes in, get the center pole in there, and then tweak the outside. And honestly, I did a pretty shady staking setup job. It was the first time setting up. I just wanted to get it up. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty easy to set up. Now I bought the center pole on the inside, and I don't know if that's necessary. It does weigh a pound, so I think what I'm gonna do is just lash 2 trekking poles together. A bunch of people, they recommended getting the center pole, and I just got it. It wasn't expensive, but it does add a pound to the setup. So I'll probably use 2 trekking poles when we take it out, you know, in the wild. But setting it up was pretty easy. And I also seam sealed it myself. So I seam sealed, not all the seams, but you know, the top and some of the vertical seams. It didn't come seam sealed. So, but other than that, I mean, setup is pretty easy. Setting up the stove is also very straightforward. It does take a little bit of time, and you got to do a lot of like dexterous things. You got to screw things, and like there's a lot of screwing and fine motor skills. So doing that in the cold and the rain might suck. But setting up the stove was super easy. It did help having 2 people to roll out of the stovepipe. But it's just screwing stuff together and getting it in the tent. It was honestly pretty easy. I'll show you another shot of the inside right now.
So you're really enjoying this, aren't you?
No, this is good. If we can just close up the perimeter.
Well, we just need to do a better stake job.
Now, what are these for?
Oh, I'll tell you. So my dad brings up a good point. He was asking me what
are these loops?
What are these loops for? And there's also little things at the bottom. So this is a modular tent. So what you can do is you can hang an inner tent inside.
That's what I was thinking. That's how you get it warmer.
Or like if you worry about bugs or something like that, you can hang a tent inside, and then you can clip a ground sheet to the sides. So we'll probably just spread a tarp out in here for now. But I do have some Tyvek that will clip into the sides, but this is a modular system, so you can hang a 1 or a 2 person tent, or take the stove out and hang a 4-person tent in here.
Very nice.
Yeah.
We do have some great hot tenting stuff planned for this year. You know, this is only going to be a winter thing for us, and maybe in like a cold spring time thing. But honestly, the setup is just too heavy to really consider using it year round. Now, I will say this. The entire setup with the stove, with the pole, with everything is about 8 pounds. So if you split that between 2 people, that's actually not awful. 4 pounds a person is for your entire shelter is not that bad. And you're gonna be sleeping on the ground, so it's gonna be lighter in some ways than a hammock setup because you can have a pad instead of an underquilt. So you save some weight there. And it's really not that bad. So it probably and when you have 3 people, then it's actually like reasonable. I mean, if you have 3 people with this thing, which we fully plan on doing, it's 2 to 3 pounds a person, and I don't think that's bad whatsoever. Honestly, that's probably the same weight as most people's winter camping setup. So I don't think it's that bad of a weight hit if you have multiple people. 1 person in this setup, it would be freaking heavy. I might do it, but I wouldn't be hiking far, that's for sure, and it's heavy. But we do have some hot tenting trips planned. We're probably gonna try and get at least 3 in this year. I've always really wanted to go to the Dolly Sods area and set up a hot tent up top in the open sods area, like in the elements. I think that will be really fun. I honestly want to do some sort of extreme trip with it, like go out in a blizzard and just see how warm it can get in there, because a lot of people will say it can maintain 60, 70 degrees inside this tent when it's, you know, far below 0 outside. So I would like to take it to some nice open areas to do some camping. I would like to take it to some like extreme blizzard areas. And then Andy and we've become fans of the fishing base camp style trip. We did that at Cranberry Wilderness. Check that video out. This is a perfect tent for that, regardless of the season. But a base camp style trip, fishing maybe, we really want to do. And then also, we wouldn't be till next year, late in the fall, but this is a really good tent to have for a hunting base camp trip. And we do hunt, not a lot, but it would be nice to have this for hunting. And honestly, hot tents are known primarily as hunting tools because people will take them up in the mountains and set up a hunting base camp and use that, because when you're setting up a base camp, I mean, weight isn't huge. So we'd like to do that. So we've got a couple trips lined up already. I'll be going out next week with it, and I'm really excited. You know, I've not shut up about this in a long time. And if you've been watching this channel, you know Andy and I, especially in the shorter weekend style trips, we're campers, man. We still like hiking. We like being out in the elements, but we like to have a very luxurious camp setup. And when you bring multiple people, you can bring a lot more weight that contributes to having a plush camping experience, and the hot tent will do just that. So thank you all for watching. I hope you're as stoked as I am to check out this hot tent stuff. It's a whole new realm, whole new skill set. You know, we always like trying new stuff too. That's another reason we're getting into this. So very excited for it. Gonna do some hot tenting stuff. Off to a solid 2021, done with 2020. Let's get out there, do some hot tenting.